off season, a time to change things up a bit. Maybe put some specific focus on one discipline, perhaps try another sport, or maybe even spend some time with your family. No, scratch that last bit, what am I talking about? But anyway, off-season can be a great time of year for triathletes, although managing your nutrition is not always easy. Do you eat more, less, change what you're eating completely? And then balancing the cold winter months along with the festive periods and lots of treats going around. Well, fear not, triathletes. If you've struggled with your off-season nutrition in the past, then by the end of this video, I want you to feel like you can nail it. So come race season, you're ready. So if you're new here, by the way, then hey, I'm James, I'm a sport nutritionist and I race triathlons on the side. I got the idea for this video from James over at First Element Endurance, so shout out to him. You should go and check him out and his channel if you haven't already. Alrighty, so let's get into it. We're going to go through some different tips and I want them to feel like a bit of a logical progression for you to consider and work through. Now this one might seem a bit basic, but it's actually a really important starting point. You don't need to just throw all of your nutrition habits out of the window. Well, unless they're really naff ones, and we're going to cover that anyway. But just because you're in this fabled off season doesn't mean that things have to change. The aim for nutrition is almost always slow, sustainable changes, and that's going to be a key focus for this video. Calorie intake is one of those elephants in the room which can be a sensitive subject, but it's important to highlight. As you go into the off season, consider how much you're eating against your past versus your current training load. Now you don't even have to count calories to do this, you can just do it intuitively. Has your overall volume or intensity of your training changed considerably? Well, consider matching that by reducing your food intake down a little bit. Remember the previous point here about doing things gradually. You could, for example, just have a slightly smaller snack or a smaller meal, and that could be all that you need to do. Setting a nutrition goal can be an incredibly helpful thing for triathletes to do in the off-season. Having something to work towards gives that extra bit of motivation, and the off-season is the perfect time to make some positive changes to your diet. And the type of things here that we're thinking about are some extra fruit or vegetables, reduced reliance on packaged food, having a proper breakfast, whole grain carbohydrates like brown rice or bread. The list here is almost endless, but I want you to think about your diet and come up with something to change. And if you fancy it, let me know in the comments what you've come up with as your nutrition goal to work on. Now, regardless of whether you're the Grinch or whether you absolutely love Christmas or similar holidays, they're coming and you're going to be part of them. So you should set some rules for these type of festivities, and those might be things like no chocolate, no alcohol, no sugary drinks, no food after 8 PM. Bugger that and don't listen to him. My opinion is that you shouldn't restrict yourself from any food or drink at Christmas or a similar holiday. It's meant to be a period of time that you enjoy with your friends and family, but it is important to just be mindful about what you eat or drink. Do you want to eat some chocolate or enjoy some Glühwein? Well, do it and enjoy the heck out of it. But just be aware that you can't eat everything, and there does have to be some moderation. So try to enjoy sensible portions, really savor that deliciousness, and be smug and happy about it when you do. Although we do love it, remember, it doesn't always have to be about triathlon or performance. And actually, if you do prioritize some other things, then you might find that your overall performance gets better anyway. Do you have something which, during race season, you always say, I'll get better at this once race season is out of the way. Oh, don't worry, it's just race season, I'll sort that at another time. But actually, come off season, you just keep going on with that same old habit. And I know that feeling. Well, the off season is the perfect time to focus on some things which perhaps you normally skimp on. And sleep is a pretty good example here. Take a step back from these super hard training and build some new good habits to take into the race season. Off-season is also an awesome time to focus on whole foods, and again, just trying to build that into good habits. By food first, what I mean is consider what parts of your diet are either processed or pre-packaged foods. Things here might be protein bars or supplements, packet rice, shop-bought sugary granola. Try to experiment with your food a little bit and see what you can come up with. You could try to create some of those things which you buy, but you know that they would be much healthier if you just made it yourself. Now, I have two pretty fond memories on this point. The first was when I tried to make homemade protein bars. Oh man, they were bad. I can't remember which recipe I followed, but they sucked. They tasted of sand and cardboard, and it wasn't really enjoyable, but it was fun. The other was when I whipped up some homemade granola. It was delicious, hearty, healthy, and pretty easy to make too. My top tip here though is that if you make granola, put it in the cupboard out of sight after you have. It's just so easy to just walk into the kitchen to get a cup of tea or coffee and just be like, ooh, granola. And then do that 100 times a day and it's gone. So this kind of ties in with the second point of this video, which was to consider your overall calorie intake. Chances are you aren't going to be doing as much training, whether that's intensity or volume, so your overall nutrition needs aren't going to be the same. This is a great time to try to reduce the amount of simple sugars that you're consuming. So try to reduce the amount of gels, sports bars, or carb drinks that you use, or other quick pick-me-ups. Now, I know this isn't always possible if you live in a place like England, but if you can, try to keep getting some natural light. Not only is it good for our mental health, but it's also important to keep our vitamin D levels up. And we create vitamin D from sunlight. Now, if it's a bit harder for you, so for example, you work in an office without much natural light, or you have darker skin, then consider taking a vitamin D supplement. Vitamin D deficiency is a pretty common problem that I see in general practice, and it is one of the few supplements which I think is very reasonable to use. If you're an athlete who competes at a high level and may be drug tested, then I would always suggest using a supplement that has been tested by a program like Informed Sport, and I've put a link to a video at the top of the screen with a bit more info on that if you're interested. So that brings us to the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it useful, and I'd really appreciate it if you gave the video a thumbs up. Press subscribe and that notification icon to get an alert anytime I release a new video, and let me know in the comments which of these tips you're going to focus on. And have a great off season. See ya.